All right, got to talk about Intel. Those earnings, revenue, and forecast all top analyst estimates. Shares are rising in after-hours trading. Joining us right now on the phone is Doug Freedman, our Broadpoint AmTech. He's the #2 most accurate analyst on Intel among more than 50 surveyed by Bloomberg. He has a buy rating on that stock. Doug, good to have you with us. So those numbers, analysts, they beat the analyst expectations. Investors seem to like them in the aftermarket. What's your take, though, on the release?
Numbers across the board very strong. I mean, this is a quarter that is hard to find fault with the numbers.
And, what number among those do you find the most important? I know going into the release, we talked an awful lot about Intel's margins. First quarter gross margin, 63%. They had seen 59 to 63, so that number was better. What number, though, really was the most important to you in this release?
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. Gross margins, and then I'd add a little bit of inventory. So the fact that inventory really didn't go up and gross margins continue to be much stronger than people are expecting is really what's going to drive the stock. We believe analysts have been underestimating the earnings leverage that the company's going to have. We also think that when the Analyst Day comes around in another month, they're likely to talk about just the capital intensity of the business that's going to enable those margins to stay at this higher level for some extended period of time.
Now, it's interesting. These are upbeat numbers. Investors like it here in the aftermarket. What I thought was interesting is that their first quarter headcount about unchanged versus the fourth quarter. I mean, so they're not having to, necessarily boost their labor force even with this upbeat outlook.
No, as a matter of fact, the company is actually spending a fair amount of R&D dollars on what we call sort of non-core PC spending. So they're doing quite a bit to try to push into new markets. And even while doing so, we're seeing this sort of record profitability come out of the business.
Doug, do you feel like that in terms of what we've been hearing on the economic front, in terms of the economic data and what we're seeing in terms of this recovery, it kind of meshes with what we're hearing from Intel? Or do you feel like even Intel's more upbeat compared to what we're seeing in terms of the economic news?
Without a doubt, we're getting very strong results out of Intel in the PC space. They are absolutely, without a doubt, leading sort of the spending on electronics. We saw unit growth last year only down 1% in what was the throes of, a major global recession. To call this company to continue to be cyclical is really hard to do, given the fact that, normal cycles, we would expect to see those units fall off more. People are more and more reliant globally on their computers. What
about inventory? Because Intel made some comments. They say they see inventory at appropriate levels. We know through the economic slowdown, what a lot of companies were doing was working off those excess inventory. So for Intel to say that, how do you interpret it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been above seasonal on the revenue growth for Intel now for the better part of 4 quarters. We think that that probably continues and we return to sort of a more seasonal pattern probably in the back half of the year. I would tell you that we could even be sub-seasonal in the back half of the year, and numbers on the street have to continue to move higher.
All right. Let me ask you, because obviously I mentioned that this stock is up in the aftermarket. How much of a boost do you think it could potentially give to the markets tomorrow? Kind of take the broader perspective, if you will. Intel, a closely watched tech bellwether. So how do you think investors are going to interpret this tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely an umbrella under which all semiconductor and the technology market operate, and Intel leading the way just shows that spending dollars keep going towards technology. So it is a very important bellwether. I think that we continue to see Intel work higher. There may be a bit of sell the news, but I think that sell the news reaction, if and when it does occur, is likely abated by the time we get around to their Analyst Day, so in a month or so.
All right, got it. Hey, listen, Doug, thank you so much. We appreciate you finding some time to break down those Intel's numbers. Doug Freedman, everybody, over at Broadpoint AmTech.